Welcome everyone to our Monday night shiur. Today is the 9th day of the Omer, which is 1 week and 2 days. Yom Givura, Shabbat Gvura. Today is also 2 days away from the Hilulah of none other than Yehoshua bin Nun, the student of Moshe Rabbeinu who took Am Yisrael into Eretz Yisrael, the great-grandson of Elishama ben Amihud from Shevet Ephraim, the Nasi of Shevet Ephraim. He was Mashiach ben Yosef of his generation, the destroyer of Amalek. The Pasuk says, Vayachalosh Yehoshua et Amalek vet Amo lefi charev. Yehoshua weakened Amalek. Why? Moshe, you're going to war with Amalek. Already finish them off. Rashi says, you gotta learn Rashi. Rashi says, Al pi hadibur. Hashem said, now is not the time to finish off Amalek. They have a purpose in the world. From here we understand that even the Tum'ah and the Tahara both are not controlled by HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. Our shiur today is sponsored Le'ilu Nishmat Burcho Bat Sarah, Yair ben Sarah, Uziel ben Chsia, and Elazar Izik ben Tamara. Ruach Hashem Tinichem Began Eden. Amen. Amen. Our shiur is also, the food has been given by Mama Schnitzel. You ain't holy until you have a mama. Okay? No holy schnitzel. We need the Mama Schnitzel over here, alright? Whoever understands, understands. So whatever the case is, today we have Parashat Shemini. Parashat Shemini, the 8th day. We know in Judaism we have some numbers that are very holy. 7 days of Shabbat. 7 days Shabbat. 7 years of Shemitah. By the way, this coming year is a Shemitah year. Whoever is going to Israel, I suggest to you to be careful. Learn all the halachot of Shemitah before you go this coming year, because you could go over Isurim of Shemitah. The Oraita is a lot of Isurim over there if you're eating from the wrong place and the wrong thing. You have to know what you're doing over there. 7 days, what else? Of Tahara. Everything in the Torah is 7 days of Tahara, 7 days of Tahara, 7 days of Tahara. But in the Torah we also have the number 8. The 8, those are the major things above the Teva, as we all know. 8 days of Brit Milah, above nature. 8 days of Chanukah. Chanukah is 8 days. The 8th day, it wasn't Zot Chanukah. And it's very interesting that the first Kohen, let's see who knows over here. Who was the first Kohen in Kal Israel? Huh? Abraham. Moses. Moses was the first Kohen. Not Aharon HaKohen, his brother. Moshe Rabbeinu, by the way, he was supposed to be the only Kohen. Elama. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him, go take Am Yisrael, he says, no, my brother Aharon is going to be a bit jealous. So what did Hashem say to him? Don't worry, Aharon is going to see you. V'samach belibo. He's going to be happy in his heart. At that moment, Hashem gave the kihuna to Aharon and the Leviah to Moshe. And how many days was Moshe the Kohen? For how many days?
1 week.
1 week exactly, 7 days. After the 7th day, Veyehi Beyom Hashemini. And it was on what day? The 8th day. So this parasha is everything is above the Teva. For example, this parasha almost 90% of the time comes after Pesach, Passover. Oh, 99% of the time. This Shabbat there is a segula for Parnasa. Why? This week, after this Shabbat, it was the first time the man came down to Klal Yisrael. The man came down in the month of Iyar. Iyar it came down. That's after this week. It's going to be the month. This week is Ma'ashat Mevorchim. We're going to bless the new month. There was a big Rav. I was zochet to daven at his kever. The Baal Ohev Yisrael. He said this Shabbat, the Shabbat after Pesach, you have to bake a challah in the shape of a key. Because this Shabbat holds the key to your parnasa. This is this Shabbat. This is the Baal. He was the Aptarav. The Aptarav, that was his name. He has a book called Ohev Yisrael. Ohev Yisrael, the love of a Jew. He's buried right next to the Baal Shem Tov. Baal Shem Tov is buried over here. He's buried right over here. He writes that you have to make this Shabbat a sigula parnasa to bake a challah in the shape of what? A key. And that shall hold the key of your parnasa, because in the month of Iyar, it's interesting, in the month of the Omer, the month of Iyar first come down what? The man from the Shamayim. And whoever says Parashat Haman every single day, I try to do that. Sometimes it doesn't always come out, but I try. Whoever says Parashat Haman, the Parashat of Man, every single day, every day. Every day. Muftach. What does the word every mean?
Every day.
Every day means every day. On Shabbat. Muftach lo shelo yechseru lo mizonotav le'olam. It's promised to him that his mizonot will never be reduced in his life. That's what whoever reads Parashat Haman every single day. But Rabbi Chaim Vital, the student of the Ari HaKadosh, he wanted to say Parashat Haman before Shacharit. You gotta pray for the guap before you daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or else you're not gonna be calm. Yeah. Ari says you can't do that. First you daven, and then at the end of the tefillah, you can pray for what? Parashat Haman. And this is what I try to do. Ashkenazim are very machmirim on this, by the way. They're very machmirim Parashat Haman every single day. That's why they have the papilimos. So therefore, that's happening this week. This is a Sigula. And what's this week's parasha? Rabbi say, Vayehi beyom hashemi ni. It was on the 8th day. Now something interesting before we're going to get to the number 8 that I want to get to. We said 8 is Chanukah. Above. Whoever wants Sigula on the 8th day of Chanukah, you could reach all the Sigulot. 8th day of Brit Milah. What do people do on the 8th day of the Brit Milah? They say the biggest Sigula, when a child starts to cry, what do? Daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu on the 8th day. There is another 8th day, which I'm going to, whoever could guess it before I'm going to get to it. There's another number 8 in the Torah that's very special, has to do with Tahara. On the 8th day, Tahara. On this 8th day, it's Misugal. Let's see, we got it? Nida. And then when does a Nida dip inside the mikveh? On the 8th night. She dips on the 8th night. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about Elchot Nida, a little bit about stories Nida. Why? Sfirata Omer is how many weeks? 7 weeks. These 7 weeks, there is a machloket in the Rishonim. The Torah says, Usfartem lachem, you have to count the days of the Omer. Yes, that's what we do. There's a machloket in the Gemara by the Rishonim too. Is the counting of the Omer the Oraita or the Rabbanan? In our days. Why? The Omer was coming to do what for us? What was it coming to do specifically? The Omer. It's coming to Matir, Kemach, Yashan. The Chadash to Yashan. Today that we don't have a Beit HaMikdash, the Omer should be what? The Rabbanan. But many Rishonim, like the Rambam Bechule, all hold that the Sfirata Omer today is a separate mitzvah. It has nothing to do with Kemach Yashan and Kemach Chadash. Counting the Omer has to do with getting to Shavuot. Why? When you have a birthday, if I say, oh, Mazal Tov, it's your birthday today. Okay, you were excited for a minute. But let's say I say in a month is going to be your birthday. You start counting the days. Tomorrow, and tomorrow, then tomorrow, and tomorrow. Next day. So too with the getting of the Torah. Getting the Torah, we all got a birthday. What was the birthday? We all became a nation on Shavuot, the 6th of Sivan. So when we say we're counting 1 day, 2 days, what are we counting to, Abraham? What are we counting to? We're counting to the getting of the Torah. So we have to get excited every day. Another day we're getting the Torah. Another day we're getting closer to getting the Torah. Closer and closer and closer. Till on Shavuot, we're supposed to be so excited that we don't go to sleep that night. If a person doesn't go to sleep that night, Ari HaKadosh says what? Muftach lo shelo yamut bo'ota shana. It's promised him, Chas Shalom, it won't happen to him any indirect weird death that year. It's such a big promise from the Ari HaKadosh. It's unbelievable. So therefore, we count the days. We're getting to Shavuot. So one of the Chachamim says that the counting has to do with the Kitzirat HaOmer. There is no Korban HaOmer. There is no Sfirata Omer, it's all Derabanan. But one Chachamim says, no, it's not Derabanan. Even today, it's what? Deoraita. Now there is a Zohar. The Zohar says, whoever misses a Sfirata Omer, he has a very big problem in his neshama. He has a big problem. Why? These days of the Omer, we're counting the kinyanim of the Torah. There are certain kinds of kinyanim, midot, certain kind of attributes. To be zochet to Torah, you need those attributes. Anav, savlan, nadakaasan, you have to be patient. Whoever is missing the Omer, it means what? He's missing one of the secret days of getting the Torah. He has to do a very big cheshbon nefesh. He has to look inside his neshama. What is he? Rabbi Avraham. He has to look, what is he missing in his neshama? Why he missed the Omer. By the way, there's big Talmidei Chachamim that miss the Omer too. They miss it. Remember, being smart doesn't mean you're a tzaddik. Being smart just means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you a big vessel. What you put inside that vessel is already up to you. That's your bichira chofshi. That's why, as a teacher, I'm a teacher in a school, for good or for bad, and I see a kid that's very smart. And what do I see usually in the kids that are smart? As much they're smart, their egos are 10 times bigger than that. What does that mean? The kli is big, but the shefa is missing over there. Nobody gave them the nice. That was today's chokli Yisrael, by the way. Do not waste the shevet. You know what a shevet is? Shevet is a baton. Shlomo HaMelech says, I don't want to go to jail for saying these words. Sometimes you have to use a baton to put the kid in the right spot. You got to use a baton. And you know what? At the end, he's going to thank you.
Absolutely.
At the end, he's going to thank you. Of course, every kid with his right parents, with his right kuah, with his right tikkun. However, a person should know everyone needs a person to put him in, or else, why would the Torah say, Hocheach, Tochiach, et amitecha? Rebuke your fellow, but finish the sentence. Lo tisa alav chet. You got to do it in a loving way. You can't embarrass him while you do it. There's halachot, how you rebuke. Rabbi Akiva, in his generation, he said, I wonder if there's anyone in my generation that knows how to rebuke his fellow Jew in the right way. Abaye also said in Masachet Erachin, I wonder, is there anyone in this generation, Abaye, who knows how to rebuke somebody? That's what Abaye said. Anyways, the Zohar says the counting of the days of the Omer and the weeks of the Omer are two separate mitzvahs. So when I say Hayom Tisha Yamim LaOmer, that's in one mitzvah. Shehem Shavua Echad Ushnei Yamim, according to the Zohar only, that's a separate mitzvah. The Zohar is a big Manda Omer. It was said at least verbally by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. That means if Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said something, it's like a Tana said something. He's a student of Rabbi Akiva. Therefore, when you do it, at least according to the Sod, you're doing two mitzvot, and according to the Zohar, it's the Oraita. It's not the Rabbanan counting the Omer. Now, why do I count the weeks, say the Omer? What's the connection? If counting the days of the Omer is to count how to get the Torah, why do I count the weeks, says the Zohar? The Zohar says in Parshat Acharei Emot, I count the weeks because these weeks is the only time a man counts how to be pure from his Tumat Nida. We also have a Tumat Nida. Every year when it comes after Pesach, the Seder finishes, we all get on ourselves the Tumah of our forefathers. Automatically it comes back to us. And we have to work now how to get back to that point that our forefathers were when they were in Har Sinai, and it's very tough. Why? It's the only time the Torah says, whoever could tell me where in the Tanakh there's only one other time it says this language, I give you guys two checks. It says by when we got the Torah, they were on such a spiritual level during the Sfirat Omer. It says, Vayichan Yisrael neged ahar. And they encamped the Jews by the mountain. But when it says when they encamp, Judaism is a very interesting language. You could talk in the plural sense, and you could talk in the singular sense. When God speaks about the Jews encamping by the Har, it says to them as one. They encamp as one keneged ahar. Who here could tell me? If you know, you know. If you don't know, you're never going to know. Who here could tell me where in the 24 books it says that they were one? I'll give you a hint. It comes right before Passover, but you have to tell me exactly where it says it. That they were one. Yom Suf is in the middle of Passover. That's it. You got your chance. Finished. Next.
Shmini.
Purim. Where in Purim?
When they fasted.
When they fasted? No, but you're close. Close, but no cigar.
When they wrote the Megillah.
When they wrote the Megillah. Kimu v'kiblu. If you look in the Megillah, it doesn't say kiblu in a plural. It says v'kiblu in the singular. All the Jews accepted the Torah. And what's the connection? By Har Sinai, they got the Torah shebichtav with love. By Purim, they got the Torah sheba'al peh with love. That's the connection by Kimu, v'kiblu ayudim. Purim and Pesach. And interesting, they both start with the letter Peh, because they all have a connection. Torah, you have to learn with what? The Peh. Everyone says, we hear Shiurim. Shiurim, you don't learn with the Peh, you hear with the Oznaim. You also have to open up your mouth. What does it say? By the Seder night, with the kid who doesn't know how to ask the question. The Lubavitcher Rebbe used to say, there is a fifth chair. Right? My brother said this in the Seder night. There's a fifth son. That's the son who doesn't show up at the Seder at all. But what does it say by the fourth son? That he doesn't know how to ask the question. At petachlo. What's petach? Open. What does the letter petach start with? Pay. You gotta open. The letter pay is to open, and we gotta open up the person. And in the letter pay also starts the nikuda patach. What's the patach, and the patach is a straight line. You got to open up the mouth. Everything, at petach, patach Eliyahu hanavi zachor lato ve'amar. Everything Bukhari used to say just for nothing. That's the reason why they used to say it. We just forgot the reason. You understand? The old Bukharians, before they used to do this, they say L'shem Yehud Kuchab Rechu Shchinte. They didn't know what they were saying, but they used to say L'shem Yehud Kuchab Rechu Ushchinte. What did we read on the 8th day of Passover? Kol HaBechor. I say we don't read Kol HaBechor. We read Kol HaBukharim. That's what we read over there. That's the 8th day of Passover above nature. Anyways, back to the 7 weeks of the Omer. Those 7 weeks of the Omer, whoever doesn't miss a night, and he's able to count 7 straight weeks, he is able to fix his neshama that year from the Tum'at Nida of the whole Klal Yisrael. And if he's able to do that, it's a siman from HaKadosh Baruch Hu that his neshama is on a good level. It's on a good level. However, once he gets to Shavuot, what happens on Shavuot? That's the 8th day. That's the Jubilee. That's the 50th. That's the 8th. Vayehi beyom hashemini. What happens on the 8th, on the Bina, on the Shemini? What happens? If you're worthy on the 8th and you work on yourself, you get the Torah. But if not, what happened to Nadav and Avihu on the inauguration of the Mishkan? But esh milifnei Hashem. The fire comes out from Hashem and they burned them. Khalil. Why did they burn them? Look in the names of Nadav. The first one, the brother Nadav, he was the main one. Nadav is Nun, Dalet, Bet. That's gonna be Nun is 50, Dalet is 4, Bet is 2. How much is that altogether?
48.
Huh? 50? 56. How many letters are there in Nadav?
3.
56 plus 3 is how much? 59. Gematria Nida. And what does it say after they passed away, Rabotai? It's the 8th day, the 8th night, Tumat Nida. What does it say? Vayidom Aharon. I want to tell you guys one secret. You want a sigula of sigulot? When a Yisurim come to you, Vayidom Aharon. Gung show. Don't say anything. What's the best show in town? Gung show. That you have to learn how to accept it. Be'ahava. Vayidom. Now look at the word Vayidom. What's the word Vayidom? Vav, Yud, Dalet, Mem, Gematria, Nida. Nida, 59 plus 1. Why plus 1? That's this level of you. You can't just take the Kiddusha just like it. You have to work on yourself. You need the 49 days of the Omer. You got to work on yourself. Whoever counts the Omer and he thinks, today is the 9th day of the Omer, I did a mitzvah. Emet. True, you did it. But if you didn't work on the Pirkei Avot, what do we read in the 7 weeks of the Omer? Pirkei Avot. If you didn't internalize Pirkei Avot, what did you reach? You're the same person. You got another check in Shammai, but you didn't go up a level. You got a check, but you didn't. Your house stays the same level. By the way, in Shamayim, in Gan Eden, there's how many Gan Edens? 7. There is 3 Gan Edens. Gan Eden the Asiyah, Gan Eden the Yitzirah, and Gan Eden the Bria. There's 3 Gan Edens. Whoever passes away, and he's how you say, he only did the mitzvot in action. He didn't do it in machshava and dibur. He goes to Gan Eden the Asiyah. In Gan Eden the Asiyah, it's good over there. But remember, he's going to look up there. And when you get to Gan Eden the Asiyah, you could already look what's above you. And you're going to look what that guy reached by learning Torah, by opening up his mouth. At petach. He opened up his mouth and he learned, and he's going to say, I want to get to Yitzirah. He's going to go to Hashem, he's going to say, bring me back to a Gilgul. Hashem says, you want to go back to Gilgul? You have to get married again. You have to have children again. You have to work for Parnasah like a dog again. The Gemara says that 7 times in a person's life. A person is born, he's like a king. When a baby is born, everybody wakes him. He's like, he says one small noise, he picks it up. No. He's like, then he 7 stages. Then he grows up a bit. What does he become? A PIG. He goes inside the dirt, in the garbage. He takes his own thing, he puts it in his mouth. He grows up a little more, he becomes a Gedi. Gedi. You know what a Gedi is? A Gedi is a goat. Booze. He becomes a goat. He starts to jump from one place to another on top of the countertops. He grows and becomes 16, 18 years old. He wants to look good. He becomes a sus. He becomes a horse. So how does a horse? A horse looks good. He's majestic. He goes out. He's looking for the women. He's looking for his batzul. He's a sus. He grows up a little more. What does he become? A kelev. Why? Kelev. Hav. Give me money. Hav. Give me all my money. He starts to loan money from people. He starts to do this. Then he grows up a little more. He becomes a monkey. Why? If he doesn't work on his midot, he becomes a zaken menayef. Everywhere he looks, he wants, give me, like a monkey. He becomes a joker. Like, this is the kind of person he is. So therefore, a person has to work. If you're not going to work in these 7 weeks on yourself, you're going to become like this, like a sus, like a gedi, like an animal. But if you work on yourself, what do you become? Malach Hashem tzevakot. You become a godly human being. Moshe ish ha-Elokim. Mechetzio lemala Elokim. Mechetzio velemata ish. Moshe was, what do they say about him? He was half and half. From the waist up, he was godly. From the waist down, he was a human. Why? We say about the Ari HaKadosh, he was all godly. This Rebbe, godly. How come? See, that's secret. Moshe Rabbeinu, we say half and half. You see, a person has to know when to be godly, and he has to know when to be a human being. When a person needs to be in his house with his wife and kids for Shalom Bayit, he has to play the game. He has to have, he has to give, he has to be from the waist down a human being. But when a person comes to the Bet HaKnesset, he comes to the Bet HaMidrash, from the waist up, what does he have to be? He has to be godly. He has to understand, before I go to the Bet HaMidrash, I become a different human being. I'm right now godly. And that's why your body, by the way, not just your soul, your body is a mirror image of Shamayim. Your body is a mirror image of Shamayim. Your skull is the mirror image of Keter. Your brain is the mirror image of Chokhmah and Bina. Your 2 hands are Chesed and Givura. Your body is Tiferet. Your 2 legs are Netzach and Hod. Your Brit Milah is the Yesod. And if you're Zocheh, your wife becomes your Malchut. If you're Zocheh, your wife becomes... That's why when a person sees his wife, he has to call her, not my wife. He has to call her my Shechina. Imagine you come home. And that's the secret to the song, Eshet Chayil Mimta. Yes, Shlomo HaMelech wrote it for his mother, but that's where it ended. And when you go home to read Eshet Chayil, you got to look at your wife and you have to tell her, Eshet Chayil Mimta, Varachok Mipininim Michera, Batach Balev Bala. What do you have in the Eshet Chayil, by the way? You have 22 stanzas. And every single one of the stanzas is one of the Aleph, Bet. You don't understand what you're doing when you're reading that. When you read the Eshet Chayil, you're giving your wife spiritual sustenance of the tipa, of the 22 letters of Hashem. You do it when you get married, and you do it when you're with her, you give her the physical. Also, when you get married, by the way, when you get married under the chuppah.
Get married.
When you're under the chuppah, when you give her the ring, you're giving her the spiritual sustenance. That's why the ring has to be round. All the chachamim say the minhag of Klal Yisrael to give what? A ring. Why a ring? Ashkenazim take it a bit too far. They make the wife actually go around the husband. Hakafot, they do Simchat Torah. They do over there. But when you give your wife the ring, you're giving her the pnimiyut to her, the or makif of her neshama. Or makif. That's why when you say the ring, you say it's kavanah. Harei al mikodesh b'tabad zo. Okay, that's Moshe v'Yisrael. What does everyone say? Mekudeshet. Why the letter mem? Mekudeshet. Why mem? There's 5 letters of Hashem's name, of the Aleph Bet, that they're the Sofiot. Mem Sofit, Nun Sofit, Tzadi Sofit, Pei Sofit, Chaf Sofit. Which one is the toughest one? The toughest one. Mem. That's why in the Torah you only have one word, where the mem is a mem Sofit. In the middle of the word. Where do you have it? In the Nevi'im. Ulemarbe hamisra uleshalom en ketz. Over there, it's supposed to be a regular mem. What does Hashem say to write? An actual, why a mem square? That's a ring. The ring is a mem square, right? That's what it is. That's what goes right. When you're with your wife, when you do the mitzvah that night, you give her the pnimiyut of her neshama. And how much pnimiyut you give her, that's how much power you give her to bring kids to this world. If you give her a lot that night, L'Shem Yachod Kochav Rechosh Chideh, doesn't mean you got to take a sidur in front of her. It says, darling, L'Shem Yachod Kochav Rechosh Chideh. It didn't say to do that. You could do it inside your head. L'Shem Yachod Kochav Rechosh Chideh. You're giving her power inside that night to bring 15 children. But if you're going to say, it's all about me, about the animal, I want to be a sus. What do you give? You give a little something over there. That's why the halacha is that a younger brother has to respect his older brother. Why is that? Because that's what you give. The neshama that's given, the earliest, that's the how you say, the choicest neshama. That's the neshama. That's the kedusha. That's the tahara right over there. That's the biggest one. That's a machloket. How about a younger son? Does he have to respect his older sister? That's already a machloket inside the poskim over there. But according to Kabbalah, yes, anyone that's older than you have to give them respect because they got the best piece of their parents, neshama. Now all this is just a hadama for one thing I want to say, that to show you, Rabotai, that all this just to get to the 8th day. What's the 8th day? Hilchot Nida. Everything is about Nida, Rabotai. These 7 weeks is all about Avraham. These 7 weeks is all about Hilchot Nida. How to be Mikadesh et Atzmecha. I want to tell you guys one thing. We say in our generation, Baruch Hashem, we have mikvaot all over the place. And not just regular mikvaot.
Nice one.
State of the art. It's mamash state of the art. It's something great. Warm, this, that. It's a spa. There's some, I don't know, there's some mikvah, I think it's opening up in the city.
Beautiful.
But how about, you saw that one?
In Brooklyn.
It's in Brooklyn, I think Syrian mikvah. I'm telling you, you don't need a balanit anymore. There is an intercom. Everything is like Siri, Siri on the iPhone. Everything is speaking to you from the speaker. Say, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Siri tells you to dip.
That tells you to dip and tells you if it's kasher or pasul over there. See a strand of hair, not good. Dip again. Light 7 mikvaot. Everything is nice. All this is hakol tov v'yafeh. All very nice. Halachot. Do we know that? I had a case this past week. A student that I taught. They were out on a trip. Nida. I remember, Nida is all, if you keep Nida, I'm telling you, you could assure yourself good kids. You could assure yourself kids who are tzaddikim. You could assure yourself that if you and your wife keep the Hilchot Nida, because you go above nature, you're in the Yom HaShemini. I'm going to tell you something crazy. I was inside, that kid was in the place. And there is a halakha, a very special halakha. When a woman goes to a mikveh, she's not allowed to tell anyone she's going tonight. It's not supposed to be a show. It's supposed to be something private. It's supposed to be a private thing. When a woman goes to a mikveh, it's a special night. She's mekayem mitzvah mideoraita. On the 8th night of her mikveh night, of her counting night, she's dipping the mikveh. That's why the number one mistake women make is counting the 7 days. When I have a chatan v'kala, which I don't like to take, I just don't have the time. I always tell my wife, when you teach the kala, first and foremost, you have to imprint inside their brain how to count the 7 clean days. It has to be imprinted. Not remembered or memorized. It has to be imprinted, stamped, engraved. Thank you, Avraham. Inside their brain, how to tattooed to the mat, how to count 7 days. Why? And Nida, who dips inside that mikveh even a day earlier, she's still in Nida. She's still in Nida, still chayav karet. Azava, by the way, azava is a higher sense of tuma. Midoraita, when she has to dip, on the 7th. But a nida has to dip on the 8th. On the 8th she has to dip. On the 8th night. It's more chamur. It's more mekel in one point. It's more chamur on another point. Now a woman that's a nida,
so the night of the 7th.
The night, which is the 8th. It's really the 8th. So if she makes a hefsek tahara Monday afternoon, she goes to the mikveh next week, Monday night. You understand? Has to be, huh?
We have zava.
Only lechumra, not lekula. Only lechumra, not lekula.
Now women, what do they hold?
They hold zava, all the halachot.
Not real nida.
They hold zava, but they hold mikveh nida. You know she's a nida or a zava. She doesn't know she's a nida or a. We hold b'safek she's a zava. I don't want to get into it right now. I'm going to halacha now with the guys.
Real quick.
Wait, real quick. The numbers is like this. A woman and this is, I hope this is going to be understood the right way. I'm not here to teach halakha. I'm just here to awaken you guys during Sefirat Omer, to reawaken yourself in these halachot, because they're very kshurim to these 7 weeks of Sefirat Omer. A woman sees dam. She sees dam. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, let's say. She stopped bleeding on Tuesday. Tuesday, I'd say 3 in the afternoon, she stopped bleeding. Could she do hefsek tahara on Tuesday? No.
No, 5 days.
Minimum.
No.
You want to trade seats? Minimum, she has to count 4 days. For Sfaradim, Ashkenazim, 5 days. Why Ashkenazim are machmirim 5 and 4? This I need a board to show you guys. Okay, I'm not gonna go right now. They're makpid ben hashemashot. If he was with her ben hashemashot, so maybe it's safek yom, safek laila. I'm not getting into it with you guys right now. Sfaradim follow Maran Shulchan Aruch. She has to, even if she doesn't bleed on Wednesday now, or on Tuesday, she still has to keep Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Those are the days that she bled. Okay. On Wednesday, she stopped bleeding because she already stopped on Tuesday, right? That's the normal woman. She bleeds between 3 to 4 days. On Wednesday, before Shki'ah, not night, Shki'ah, sunset, Ben Hashem Ashot, Shki'ah, sunset, she has to do a hefsek tahara.
Checkpoint.
This is where all the mistakes happen.
Checkpoint, right?
Women think because she makes a hefsek on that Wednesday, she could already go to the mikveh next Tuesday night. So in reality, she never counted 7 full days, she only counted 6. That hefsek tahara, which is coming to prove that her makor, her uterus has closed, is not part of the 7 days. Now if I would tell you how many people make this mistake, your hair would stand. Rav Ovadia Yosef himself, in his sefer of Torah Tahara, had to write this down to say this is the number 1 mistake in Hilchot Nida. Number 1 mistake. So therefore, a person has to know during these 7 weeks you have to go over Hilchot Tum'ah v'Tahara. And if you do, Vayehi Beyom Hashemini, you're going to have kids that are above nature. You ever see a kid that in the Teva Shelo, he can't do Averot? He wants to, but he cannot. He has some kind of spiritual magen. You know what a magen is? Shield. Those come, you know where that comes from? Mikveh. That comes from the mikveh. I want to tell you a scary story. Rav Yitzchak Zilberstein says this story. He says, in Eretz Yisrael one time, there was a lady, Oleh Hadash. How do they say? Ruski, Haruski. Khundul, the Lavan Shebalevanim. White of whites.
White or white.
Exactly. Like Yom Kippur. Lady was old, 60, 70 years old. She comes to the Chevra Kadisha. True story, no skaska. I don't tell you guys no skaska. 60, 70 years old, she goes to the Chevra Kadisha. You guys know what Chevra Kadisha is, right?
Yes.
Chevra Kadisha are the guys who take the tough jobs.
The
They clean the body,
Mitzvah met.
mitzvah hamet, and they bury the body.
Like your dad.
Yeah. She comes to them and she says, my husband passed away. No kids. No Kaddish. No one to pay for the burial. Now in Israel they have a rule, that city that you're in, they give you a burial spot. Chai. Are you Jewish? Bichlai? No, Israelis. She said, yeah, I'm Jewish. Could you prove it? Okay, we'll go to Beit Din. Yeah, you gotta prove you're Jewish. Zat pashut. They go to the Beit Din, Ashkenazot Beit Din. Who are you? Shimon Soda, Barabam, Baradida? Jewish. Pashut, stamp, engraved, stamp, she's Jewish. Vayehi Beyom Hashemini. On the 8th day. Jewish. They're going to bury, no one's there to say Kaddish. Who says Kaddish if there's no one to say Kaddish? Chevra Kadisha, the guys who are burying, they say Kaddish. Yeah. They're about full service. They're about to put him in the ground. The man's name was Herschel. Hershala.
Boys,
Tzvi.
call them.
So the Chevra Kadisha looked one to the other. You have to say hesped. Hesped. What the hesped?
Eulogy.
Eulogy. Before you put the person in the ground.
Something good.
But who knows? Nobody knows anything. And these guys are mad pisatis, as they say. Dosim. The woman cannot speak at a eulogy. The wife said, listen, we're 10 people over here. Can I just say one thing? Yakta Gav Mizanam. Hi, they said, old lady she was, no kids, nothing. She stood in front of the grave. And she said, Heshala, Heshala, my dear husband, I know what you're thinking right now. You're going to Olam Ha'emet. And you have no kids. No one to say Kaddish for you. No one to do Yushvo for you. No one to do mitzvot in your name. The big Averah of Nadav and Avihu that they didn't have children. The Gemara says, whoever doesn't have children, Rav Shalom Gadaev. You're afraid you're going to Shamayim. I'm telling you right now, Heshallah, you have nothing to be afraid of. 40 years she looked at the Chevra Kadisha. We lived in Russia. 40 years there was no mikveh. 40 years we were married. You didn't touch me even with your pinky. And when I got older, when we in the Soviet Union, when the Iron Wall fell, we moved to America. But I was too old to have kids already. Heshallah, you have Olam Haba. And all the Chevra Kadisha with tears in their eyes said Kaddish al Israel.
No way.
That's a true story. There is people out there, Abotai, that have the koach to hold themselves. Vayehi beyom hashemini. They could hold themselves in these halachot. So many halachot. I want to teach you guys something today, but it's a bit past my bedtime. So I want to say that our shiur today, our Torah today, should be Le'ilun Nishmat once again. Burchobat Sarah, Yair ben Sarah, Uziel ben Kitziah, Elazar Izik ben Tamara. Ruach Hashem Shemaim. May our words of Torah bring them up. Migan Eden HaTachton, Ligan Eden HaElyon, Ve'mala Mala, Ve'chen Yiratzon Ve'lomar. Amen. Rabbi Hananiah ben Akashya Omer, Ratzah HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Lezakot Et Yisrael Chayva